always have them right next to me. I have my pumpkin candles. This one is pumpkin bread. I don't really know what that means or what the difference is, but it tastes like, or it smells like pumpkin. And then this one is bourbon pumpkin. I don't think I have a favorite. This one's definitely darker, but they're both so good. And normally, you know what? Seasonal smells can be too much sometimes. But these ones are so good. Mix these with like a linen or like a soft laundry scented one, and it evens out. If you put them all throughout your house, it evens out. I still don't know if there's any like harm from candles that are this like I don't know, toxic, you know, like they're not really natural. I still don't really know if there's a harm from them, but I don't think so because it's fine. It's fine. Life is short, so might as well enjoy it. I have been on a major reading kick. I don't have all the books with me right now because I'm not at my house, but I finished ACOTAR and I'm so in the Sarah J Maas fantasy series discourse. I'm waiting to finish Sarah J Maas before I start on the Brandon, is that his name? Brandon's like Soren son or something, because that seems like an absolute commitment. I mean, obviously I'm like, so 16 books isn't a commitment, but he is. No, Sarah J Maas is also a commitment, but it's different. I feel like it's less of a commitment. And here's my little 2 cents. I read ACOTAR first, and now I'm reading Throne of Glass. I am on Air of Fire, which is the fourth. It is the fourth in the Throne of Glass series. And here's what I have to say. I'm fully invested at this point. I'm fully invested. I'm here for it. The dog is aggressively chewing in the back. Why am I always burping during ASMR? Burp ASMR. Throne of Glass and ACOTAR, very different. I think ACOTAR is a safe bet. ACOTAR, everyone's gonna like. And it's really good for like intro to fantasy. It's really good for people that haven't been reading for a while or in a reading slump enough. Do they just want something easy and something that's likable and enjoyable? However, I do think that if you read the Throne of Glass first, you are less likely to like ACOTAR because this is very different and you're gonna have this in mind. And ACOTAR's not gonna be the same thing, and you're gonna be like, it wasn't it for this, because this is a great series. And I haven't finished them, but I already know the storyline is gonna be great. Like the plot is gonna be amazing. The end is gonna be like, I'll never recover. And so it's also very specific. And going from that to something that just kind of seems like a fairy tale, kind of seems like Beauty and the Beast, or some other fairy tale like Cinderella or something that we grew up with. It might seem like a little bit simple, and it might seem like you don't want to go into the world, and it might seem a little bit juvenile, because this one has a lot more like unadulterated murder. So it might seem a little bit different. However, I think that is only because you are reading it with the lens of the Throne of Glass series. Whereas if you read the ACOTAR series first, you fall in love. You go on with no assumptions. I think it is so easy to fall in love with that series. So for that reason, I think you should read ACOTAR first. Also, you do have to be persistent, but if you believe in yourself, I believe that you can finish, and you can also finish this series. I think Oh, we're doing bean play this early in the book. I was shook. But I do think that's because it's so personal. And so you really get into the nitty gritty and every little thing. There's some things about her personal life that you were like, oh, this is so personal. Like, I just can't even. And I think for some people with a personality similar to hers, slash, I think most people can just relate to her in some sense because we've all been her before. We've all had her thought process before, even though we haven't gone through what she's gone through. It's such an incredible one, and it's so sweet. It's such a beautiful picture of friendship, of forgiveness, of moving on after tragedy. And Farrah does that too, but I just think the first three are easier to like because Farrah is a lot easier to like. It doesn't take that much. I mean, she's literally a survivor. She's a warrior. It doesn't take that much to like her or respect her. And it's a little harder to respect someone who just sits on her butt all day. Or, you know, that's how she was portrayed. And you know, when I first finished the series, ACOTAR I'm talking about, I was really sad because I was like, I'm not a fairy. I'm not going to be a fairy. And like, where can we get magic? Like, how can I literally like live in the woods and be a fairy? How, like, don't dump me into that cauldron. Okay, I'm gonna go ahead and take a dive head first into that cauldron, even if it is 2 feet deep. Oh, okay. Hey guys. I just love it when people start screaming in the hallways. That's probably one of my favorite things is when people start screaming in the hallways. Anyways, girl, I want to jump head first into that cauldron. I'll tell you that much, okay? Anyways, so I was kind of depressed when I first ended the series because I was just like, that will never be me. But what I've realized, and I think in reading Throne of Glass, it was kind of disappointing at first, but what I've realized is that we love fantasy because it is traces of what we see in our everyday life. I mean, we see bits of magic in our everyday life. We see butterflies, we see rainbows, we see floods, we see supernatural things happening. Likewise, we see people who are hard to be with, people who are hard to be around. We see people who are warriors. We see people who are strong, who look in the face and challenge it, who are willing to give up everything for those they love. And so we love what we read about because we know glimpses of that. And when it's in a book, it's all condensed into 400 pages. And so you're getting that back to back to back. But if the book were actually real, these people take years between seeing those glimpses of magic again. You know what I mean? And immortality is made to be really beautiful in this. But really immortality in the way that a body is immortal is not a blessing. And who's to say that if immortality was real, as in bodies stayed forever, who's to say that they would be the way that they are portrayed in books? I think most people would become very rotten and spoiled and hate the fact that they will never change bodies and they'll never pass on to a different life unless something incredibly excruciating and horrible happens to them. I think in books like this, it can only be seen oh, we didn't hear that. In books like this, it can only be seen as sad and as unnecessary and horrible. Whereas in real life, it can be seen as a blessing. It can be seen as a beautiful thing. And the fact that we are mortal and we don't have magical powers, and yet we still see traces of people that are willing to sacrifice, that are strong, people that are kind, people that have worked through their incredible trauma. The fact that we still see that in mortals is even more special than seeing it in someone who has powers. ninja and I can do anything. But this book, I think it explains a lot of her backstory, and it becomes believable. It becomes understandable and believable why she acts the way that she does. And this one was pretty good. This one's a pretty easy read as well. It's a bunch of novellas, so it's a bunch of backstory on her. I was invested, and now that was the first three. These two next. So this one is what I'm on now. Now I'm invested. And this is the biggest one I've read in this series. So most of them are maybe like this big, like half the size. They're pretty easy to get through. They're nothing to write home about, but I definitely know it's worth it because at this point I have started reading more like TikTok reviews and stuff like that. And I pretty much all around the board have understood that the Crescent City series is the best one / the biggest payoff. I've seen a couple unpopular opinions that like the first was so upset because I was like, there's no magic. What the freak? And that changes a little bit, but as of right now, it's still kind of like, it's more assassin, it's less fairy. So, in that sense, I suppose it is a little bit more realistic, and maybe that's what's hard about it, or that's what made me a little bit sad about it in the beginning, because I was like, this is too serious, this is just people actually struggling, and I felt like there was magical elements just kind of thrown in, like sporadically throughout, and it was a little bit confusing for me, because I was like, are we using magic, or are we not? I'm kind of confused here. However, I think the exposition has been a lot more impressive than the original, or like the initial introduction to those elements. I will be reading that Brandon Guy's thing. Also, I think in ACOTAR, the map of the world, there was some world building, but I felt like it was not extremely complex and really simple to understand, and it seemed pretty straightforward. The map was decently important, but the map was easy to understand as well, and things were very clearly divided in this. Sorry, what the freak? In this one, the map, it's not that important until maybe this book, until book 3. And it's not even so much that you have to understand where things are, but it's nice to understand the different regions because they're frequently referenced. And I think I am a little bit confused with the regions in this book. But it's okay. I'm a little bit intimidated by other fantasy because it seems so world building that there's going to be a lot to understand, and I'm going to be like, I'm going to literally be reading it like this. So, and the map here is a little bit more like dense, and there's not clear divisions. It's not like states, it's like regions, so there's no clear divisions, and it's like a city within a region and stuff like that. And I don't really understand how big the main region is, like Darlin. How big is that main region? So, but I do love, oh my gosh, okay. Okay, the AC went on, so I'm gonna end this. I do love the romance element of Throne of Glass. I love the way that she writes romance. I think it's really clever. I think it keeps the reader on edge. I'm really excited to see the main character develop. I've really enjoyed her character development. And yeah, thank you for watching. And I'm so excited to get back to you guys when I read, either finish this book or whatever. Maybe I go in depth on the different books. Yeah, I'm jumping on this fantasy train and I'm loving it. I'm already planning my first tattoo around it. Not my first tattoo, but my first tattoo concerning fantasy.